Husbands, take time to lift up your wife. Give thanks for her. Rejoice, treasure the treasure, and you will find yourself rejoicing. And wives, do the same thing with your husbands. Give thanks for the blessings, for your life, for your ministry, for everything God gave you. This is crucial, especially in the last days. The more you delight in God, the more plugging in your soul, you're plugging your soul to the river. The more you delight in the things of God, you're going to receive the things of God. The more you delight in the Word, you're going to receive the Word. That you'll prosper no matter what. You know, imagine two men in a prison cell, hopeless. It's just, they're in chains, but what do? They start praising God and having a worship service, Paul and Silas. And what happens? The whole place breaks down. An earthquake breaks open the prison. They didn't matter where they were, they're going to delight in God. Because where they are, the prison cell has nothing to do with delighting in God. It cannot stop you from delighting in God. They didn't focus on their chains or their dungeon. It didn't matter, could not stop the joy of God. And we have to learn that too. Too often we're focusing on the chains and the dungeon when we should be delighting in God. All around is drought, but that tree is prospering. That's Paul and Silas. They were plugged in. They were plugged out of their circumstances. They were plugged into God, and therefore they ministered to their circumstances. They changed their circumstances. Fishermen on a boat tossed by the waves and the waves. And I remember when we were there 2 years ago in Israel, and people always ask me this. Whenever we go by the Sea of Galilee, they ask me, they look at it, they say, you know, this is so calm. We can't imagine how it could ever be like we read in the Bible. Well, God decided to show us how. And we were in this boat and several boats, and it started a storm on the waters. And I mean, we're in a big boat. They were in a little boat. Storm on the water so much. I mean, people are sitting in chairs and all the chairs collapse. They fall on the floor. I mean, some break open. It is going up. We had to go up. We could not even come in to where we were supposed to. We had to go to the other side of Galilee where the wind wasn't blowing as much. But it was literally, I mean, you could see how the disciples going up in a little boat, it would be life-threatening. And yet, Messiah is asleep in the boat. Why? Because he is plugged into God. He is not moved. He is like the tree planted by the water. Even in a storm, he's a tree planted by the water. And he is not moved by the storm. And he gets up and he ministers to the storm. Joseph is in prison. And yet the word says that Joseph, when he was in prison, he prospered. How's that for prosperity? I don't hear that preached. Have the blessing of Joseph. May you prosper in prison. But that's bigger than prospering on the throne. He's the one who had the discernment of God. He was plugged into God. Wherever he went, he prospered. Whether it was up or down, he prospered. Richard Wurmbrand in prison, he said they had chains. They gave them chains. And what they did with the chains, they used their chains as musical instruments to worship God. And they had the prison wall, and what they used the wall to tap Morse code, they shared the gospel with other prisoners. And he was tortured, beaten, and he said it was like ecstasy because he could so much have the presence of God. He was a pastor, and he realized that God said, when he went in there, he said, you were running around so much you didn't have time with me. Now I'm chaining you down, you're going to be with me. And when he got out of that prison, you know, we asked him, we said, what was it like if you had to do one? He said, one word, the word was romantic. Because he was in the presence of God. No matter what situation, he was plugged in and nothing can touch that one and the leaves are going to be green. No matter what's going on in your life, you can prosper. Not the way that some preach, but you can prosper by always being blessed by God and having joy because you're plugged into God, not in the circumstance. You're not plugged into the problem anymore. You're plugged into God. These are the ones who delighted in God. Joy is a powerful thing. The joy of the Lord is not just good. It's not just good feeling. It's your strength. It's a weapon. And the thing is, we have to come to this before the time of testing, before the time of shaking. We need to get into the practice of getting deeper plugged into God. To make time with him, deep time every day in the joy of his presence. Make it the joy of your day, the center of your day. And when the times come of shaking, you're not going to be shaken because you're plugged into your God. And he's deeper than anything. He cannot be shaken, so you're not going to be shaken. Delight, the greatest power you have to overcome sin is to be filled up with God. That is to redirect your mind, redirect your thoughts. When you look at that sin, you're about to be tempted. Don't look at that sin. Look at what it's going to lead you to. Look at the pain. Look at the regret. Look at how you're going to be the morning after. And look at that pain, and it won't be so hard to turn down. And when you look at prayer and the word and all the things and ministering, what God asked of you, even turning down that sin, don't look at the hardship of it. Look at the joy that it's going to bring you. Look at the joy. It says, for the joy set before him. That's why Messiah went to the cross. The greatest power. Delight in the word of God. Get into the ecstasy of being in God. There's something that is so great. It takes discipline if you're not used to it, but once you get into it, it's going to be a joy that is going to be the greatest joy in your life. Delight yourself in the presence of God. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. So Messiah said, let anyone who's thirsty come to me and drink, and out of his innermost being shall flow rivers of living water. The abundant life. How do you live it? 3 words here. Come to me. He didn't say get onto a doctrinal bandwagon. He didn't say rush out to the next revival. He didn't say get into seeking all the manifestations. He said come to me. Simple, deep, come to me, and your life will be abundant. Get into me, and you will be filled and overflowing. Now, in English, we tend to focus on that.